I saw a post on Instagram the other day that kind of stuck with me. It said, "People who know how to swim don't look like they're drowning." Sit with that for a second. The strongest swimmer in the pool is the one nobody watches. Smooth strokes, easy breathing, total command. Which means if he ever did start to go under, you'd be the last to know. He'd keep his face arranged, he'd keep the rhythm going, he'd slip beneath the surface quietly with a smile on while everybody on the deck admired his form. And I recognize that man because for a long stretch of my life, I was that man. Here's why I can't let this go. We now have a Men's Mental Health Month on the calendar. Take a beat and ask yourself how we ever got to the point where we needed one. The numbers tell part of the story. According to the CDC, men die by suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women, making up roughly 8 of every 10 suicides in this country. And Pew Research found that men are far less likely than women to reach out to a friend or to a professional when they're hurting. Not because we hurt less, because somewhere along the way we trained ourselves not to say so. We are masters of the mask, and not just one mask. There's the one you wear for your kids because they need to believe dad is bedrock and you'd rather die than let them see the cracks. There's the one you wear for your wife because you've learned sometimes the hard way that if you let too much spill out, something in her recoils, and you can't risk that. There's the one you wear at work because the moment you look like you're slipping, the scrutiny starts. And then there's the one you wear with your friends, where you'd rather be the guy who adds value to the group than the guy who's a burden on it. 4 masks, 4 fronts, all running at once. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. You can wear a mask long enough that it fuses to your face. I talk a lot about how practice makes permanent. Not perfect, permanent. We become what we rehearse. The trouble is, you can rehearse something for 20 years without once choosing it. Nobody sits a young man down and says, "Today you'll begin a lifelong practice of concealment." It just kind of builds up, layer by layer, one swallowed feeling at a time, until hiding isn't a decision anymore. It's a reflex. And by the time you'd actually want to drop it, in a therapist's office, across the table from a friend, overriding that reflex takes real, deliberate, effortful work. The habit is that deep. And here's what that habit costs you. The strength you perform becomes armor around your soul. And armor does exactly what armor is supposed to do. It keeps the threats out. But the same wall that keeps the world from seeing in also seals your soul off from the one thing it cannot live without. The emotional and spiritual nourishment that only comes from being known by other people. So behind the armor, where no one can see, you slowly starve while the facade stays polished, because polished is what is expected. Rewarded even. Think about how absurd that is. You'd never say eating takes too much out of me. I think I'll skip it. I mean, you need food to live. You need connection for the exact same reason. But somehow we've decided that nourishment of the soul is optional, a luxury we'll get around to once things calm down. But they never calm down, and we wither in the meantime. But hold on, why do we armor up in the first place? Well, the answer to that question is shame. Shame has one message, and it whispers it on a loop. If they knew what's really going on inside you, they'd back away. And so you wall off to avoid being cast out. But sit with that, because it's the cruelest trick in the book. You isolate yourself to avoid the rejection that would isolate you. The thing you fear and the thing you do to prevent it produce the identical result. You alone. Psychiatrist Kurt Thompson, in his book The Soul of Shame, puts it about as plainly as it can be put. Being known is what heals shame, and isolation is one of shame's primary methods of breaking you down. The medicine is the very thing the disease talks you out of taking. I didn't learn any of this from a book, though. I learned it in the passenger seat of my buddy's car. It was the spring of 2019, about half a year before I'd finally come up for air after a long, dark season in my life. We were driving home from a men's retreat. No church, no agenda, just a bunch of guys spending a long weekend breaking bread and riding mountain bikes. 3 hours of highway, and we were about halfway home. Anyway, I'd been reading a book called Aspire by Kevin Hall, and I started reading a passage out loud, probably to share some insight since I hadn't finished it yet and had no idea what was coming. In it, Hall tells the story of his massage therapist, a man named Den Brinkley. Hall describes Den as the toughest guy he knew, a Vietnam vet, the kind of man you'd want next to you in a war. And then Hall tells you that this man, this unsinkable, unbreakable man, had once come within seconds of ending his own life. What stopped him was a small voice from inside the house, his young son calling out for him. Daddy, where are you? I can't find you. Where are you? His son had no idea, but that moment of meaningful connection, spontaneous and unexpected as it was, maybe because it was spontaneous and unexpected, was enough to bring Brinkley back. Anyway, I did not see this moment in the story coming, and it hit me like a wrecking ball. My gut felt like it had just been punched. My eyes welled up before I could stop them, and my whole body went into that fight or flight scramble. Get the mask back on. Get it on now. And when I finished, my friend quietly asked if I was okay. I don't remember exactly what I said. Knowing me, I probably tried to brush it off. But the crack had already opened, and for once, I didn't fully reseal it. We started talking right there, doing 70 on the highway. That conversation became an inflection point in our friendship. My unguarded moment was met not with disgust, but with compassion. And that built a trust between us that still holds today. Here's the part I want you to catch. I was already inside the brotherhood. I'd spent the whole weekend with good men, and I was still fully masked, fully armored up. The opening didn't come from the retreat's planned vulnerability. It came sideways, from a stranger's most private moment reaching through the page of a book to find mine. As Henry Nouwen and Carl Rogers have both suggested, what is most personal is most universal. The thing you're most ashamed to say out loud is almost always the thing another man is dying to hear someone else admit. Now, I can hear the objection because I've made it myself. Opening up can backfire, and you're not wrong, it can. Brené Brown's research in her book Daring Greatly found that even those who beg a man to be vulnerable can flinch when he actually is. So no, the answer is not to crack yourself open in front of everyone. The answer is the right people in the right context. And maybe most important, don't you dare quit because you got burned one time. One bad experience is not a verdict on the whole enterprise. I think of my friend Dave Brooks. Dave and I did ministry together in Colorado a couple of decades ago. Recently, I learned that Dave wrestled with thoughts of ending his life nearly every day from the time he was 13 until he was 48. 35 years. Then he got real helpful help, and his life changed. He's now pursuing a doctorate so he can become a therapist and walk other men out of the very pit he climbed out of. He tells the story himself on his podcast, The Exiled Sojourner. Thank God he pushed through. So let me leave you with two questions. Not a quiz, just two honest questions to sit with. Where in my life am I performing fine, and who am I performing it for? And the second question, who is the one person I could let get a little closer this week? Because here's the truth, and it's the kind of truth that's only hard because it's true. Nobody is coming to do this for you. Even the people who love you most can't. No one can break in and heal a heart that's kept under lock and key. You have to be the one to turn it. And if some part of you is already saying, I've never been the kind of guy who reaches out, why start now? Then I gently push back with one more question and sit with this one the longest. What if I decide to be the one who reaches out, who initiates, who introduces himself, who learns how to actually value and cultivate a friendship? Just what if? Then take one step, just one. Pick one safe person and do one small thing. Send the text, set the coffee date, show up for poker night instead of staying home again. Walk into that men's group at church. You don't have to fix your whole life this week, but if your soul is starving, you need to start thinking about how to feed it. And if you're watching this from somewhere closer to the edge than you've ever told anyone, please reach out right now. In the US, you can call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, free and confidential, any hour of any day. You do not have to carry this alone. You were never meant to. If this resonated, let me know in the comments and share it with a man who needs it. You might be the voice calling him back from the edge. And if you want to go deeper, my book, Surfing the Invisible Wave, is available now. You can find out more at invisiblewave.surf.